Hey guys, welcome to an episode of InRange. I'm here with Sinistral Rifleman, and we have the Beretta 92X Performance. So this is essentially Beretta's ready-to-go match model of their, 92, which of course was also the M9 in military service. But this has a lot of features and things that have really enhanced this gun in a way that has turned it into something right out of the box is ready to win matches.
Definitely. So it's interesting, since Beretta lost the service pistol contract to SIG several years ago, they seem to be more interested in pursuing commercial products and innovating, which makes complete sense. You got to reach out to new markets and make up for those loss of military sales. So what turned me onto this is one of our ROs, Pharaoh Joe, has had a 92X Performance for a while, iron sight model, and has done quite well with it at matches. And then I saw in December, JJ Ricazza, who is sponsored by Beretta, won the IPSC World Shoot in Production Optics Division with this gun. Different optic on it, but it seemed like a very compelling out-of-the-box competition pistol. So I guess we can go over the differences between it and a standard 92. It has a Brigadier slide. It has a steel Vertec frame, which helps increase the weight. The stock weight without any optics or accessories mounted to it is 47.6 ounces.
Now when you say Vertec frame, this is actually more straight down. There's not like a bump here. Is that a fair way to put that? Okay.
Yeah. Another critical difference is this gun can be set up to be single action only if you want it to be.
Okay.
You can carry it cocked and locked or start cocked and locked, depending on the division you're competing in. We don't have restrictions on single action versus DA or striker fired pistols at our events, so I've been using it cocked and locked like you would with a 1911.
Yep.
You can, however, if you want to, manually lower the hammer by blocking it with your thumb and fire your first shot on double action and all your subsequent shots on single action, which is what you would need to do in production divisions.
So it doesn't have a decocker then?
No decocker. Okay.
But it does have not a slide, but a frame-mounted safety, even though it's in the same position it would be on a standard 92.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and you can take a set screw and adjust it on the trigger to make it single action only, which then shortens the reset on it. So if you want to make it, purely for that purpose, you can do that.
Should we get down on the tabletop here and you can walk us through some of that more closely?
Sure. All right, so the magazine catch is reversible. I've set it up for left-handed operation. You do have to remove the grip panels to switch over the magazine release. The gas pedal type slide release mechanism, I've switched over to left-handed as well. That is a different part you have to order. The right-handed one would be over here. So disassemble, lock the slide back, push in on the takedown button, rotate that forward, and then slide comes off. Slide field strips like any other normal auto pistol slide, recoil spring comes out, barrel comes out, etc. The gas pedal definitely helps in controlling recoil. You lean your thumb into that, and you can see I have about 2,000 rounds on this gun so far, so I've already rubbed the finish off by riding like that, like I'm supposed to help control the muzzle flip. As we said, the gun can be carried cocked and locked, and the safety is ambidextrous. If you want to decock, you put your thumb behind there, release it, let it forward, go off the trigger, because then there is a block in place that will prevent the hammer from falling on the firing pin if you are not depressing on the trigger. Feels weird. Do that a few times at the actual range. Get used to it before you try to do that when you're actually on the clock at a match or at load and make ready, so that you don't accidentally let that slip with your finger on the trigger, because then it will fire. The optic system, there are two cutouts on top of the slide, and it comes with a plate system with pins that allow you to use a number of open emitter red dot optics. I like the Steiner MPS and other closed emitter optics better most of the time. And of course, Steiner is a sister company of Beretta, so I thought it was appropriate to mount it to this particular pistol. I did have to buy the Aimpoint Acro cut plate for the slide. That did not come with it, but you can mount over a dozen different optics to the plate that it comes with.
So for those of us that are historically minded, I want to point out that this, of course, being a Beretta 92 derivative, is also a World War II era P38 derivative, which is pretty fascinating because it is using the same locking system. If I can do this here on camera, there it goes, as the P38 did in World War II. This is your locking lug that locks this into battery when you're firing. And this is really not changed from the historical P38. And that goes to show you that that system and that design really was a good idea and has lasting legacy up to and including now this competition match gun, but also a service pistol that serviced the United States military for a very long time. So this is not a Browning system. This is the P38 locking system, and Beretta is still using it for this competition gun. So in that regard, if you can see, these are actually the locking lugs that slide up into the slide and keep the slide locked during the firing cycle. So as it recoils, those retract down, and that's what opens the slide for it to be able to reciprocate. So that little locking block around the barrel is your locking lug, and that is exactly identical and hasn't changed since the P38. It's really pretty interesting. It does tend to be a little dirt susceptible in my experience. If stuff gets in here, you can have problems, but in reality, it's not really that much of an issue.
All right, so when you get a new pistol, you got to go through prepping various things to get ready to use it at a match. So zeroing the red dot, I do not have the ransom rest inserts for this, but what I did do is zero it off a sandbag at 25 yards. Got some pretty good 2 to 2.5 inch groups with S&B 124 grain. So pretty good mechanical accuracy out of it. I did have to get a holster made because you're not going to find an off-the-shelf holster for this particular configuration. Why do I have a light on it? It's allowed, it adds weight as long as the light functions. Mitigate muzzle flip even more. Adding
weight does help with shooting, especially with shooting at speed such we do at these events, because like you said, that weight in the front means that you're going to have less, not necessarily less per se recoil, but less flip.
Less flip, yep. So like at our matches, as long as the light functions, you're allowed to have it on there. And if you want to dual purpose a gun like this and use it for defensive purposes, a weapon light's always a good thing. So to that end, I had my friends at Pro2 Customs make me this holster for it. And it is set up for the Safariland QLS system so that I can just drop that in and off my belts as needed.
Yeah.
So pretty good retention. A lot of the retention on this one comes around the optic. That's a good clicky point on the holster is on the optic there. So I did, of course, dry fire and presentation work with this at home. My big problem with switching to new pistols, because I've shot primarily Glocks since 1999 with hundreds of thousands of rounds fired, you know, millions of reps, is that getting used to that presentation, finding the dot, because the dot is taller. The iron sights do not co-witness with it, which gives you a cheater mode on a lot of other pistols, so you don't have to get absolutely used to finding the dot.
Yeah, use that. The phrase muscle memory comes to mind, but when you bring this up, you have so many presentations with a Glock, it's instantaneous.
And the dot being like a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch lower, depending on the gun, right? So what I found is I got used to doing that at home, and I could get it to not fail at home, but as soon as the buzzer goes off, I'm struggling to find the dot.
Well, you're going back to what you're used to, which was where the Glock would have the dot.
Right. So that's not a fault of the pistol, and that's the hard thing in like ultimately reviewing guns like this is familiarity and skill plays such a big role in how effective you are with it, right?
It does.
So to that end, at Handgun Brutality here, the stages like Time Crisis, where I had to constantly go position to position and reacquire, you can see there's a delay on video as I'm finding the dot.
Okay.
The stages where it was more like get in position, stand and deliver.
And once you're on the dot and don't lose the dot.
I just slayed with it. And as far as losing the dot, like the dot doesn't leave the window for me. Under recoil, it's like dead center because the gun is so heavy, it's just not moving.
I should clarify, when I say lose the dot, I mean lose the dot from losing your presentation.
Right.
So you're up and you're on it, you're not losing the dot firing, but if you move and then come back up, you got to find it again.
Ironically, on our one-handed only stages, I found it a little bit easier to find the dot because I'm pointing out more naturally to the side in a way that I haven't practiced a whole bunch. So like on the RoboCop stage and on the stage where I was dragging the sled, I found it a little bit easier to get on the dot than say on Time Crisis. Further into the match, the more stages I'd shot during the match, the more comfortable I got using it. I did use it at like 5 local matches before coming out here, and overall really happy with how it worked. The accuracy is great.
Yeah.
Some of those heavy no-shoot cluster stages like the Bloodborne stage and Carnival, I think I had on Bloodborne I only had one hostage hit I had to make up and remove the penalty. And on Carnival, I had none.
Yeah, so in that regard, the shooting and handling qualities of this gun is superb right out of the box.
Yeah.
You pick this thing up and it's just amazing, and it's ready to go. It's ready for a red dot. It is really a match gun out of the box.
Yeah.
You didn't really have to change anything except getting it to left-handed.
Yeah, the only thing I had to do was buy the left-handed parts, which as a lefty you kind of expect you got to do that anyway.
So I had never fired this once ever in my life. I had held one and a dry had fired one, but I had never fired one. And for the last stage of the day yesterday, we handed this off to me, and on the clock with no practice whatsoever, I was just slaying with it. Like the trigger, the press, the actual, the qualities of the recoil impulse, the ergonomics were superb, and I was immediately, with no issue whatsoever with your Zero, just knocking down targets with no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, the single action trigger on this is absolutely fantastic.
And the reset's amazing too.
Yeah.
In fact, we are clear. So there's your fire. It is nothing. What was that? A couple millimeters?
Yeah, it's pretty short.
And then there's a crisp wall and a nice break.
Yeah, so like on those like high value targets, like the clay target on the RoboCop stage, firing one-handed.
Yep.
Just got on it and sent it. Really confident in my ability to get those hits with that really nice trigger.
So now this gun, being really a high-end, out-of-the-box match gun, does not come cheap.
I believe the street price is around $1,500 to $1,700 on this.
Yes.
And maybe we'll annotate that on the video if we see it differently. But compared to a lot of other stuff, you don't have to spend any money on it.
Right. So like if you wanted to make a Glock a competitive Glock, you have to do a lot of modification, get the slide cut, all sorts of things, correct?
Put a new trigger in it. You're replacing half the gun to get it there.
Right. This one, you literally take it out, put an optic on it, and go to work.
Yep.
Yep. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's out of the price range. It just means that you are paying more to have something initially ready to go right out of the box.
My only real complaint is the magazines are super hard to load, even the loading tool.
Double stack, single feed.
And, well, even compared to other autos.
Okay.
So, like, these are 18-round magazines.
Yes.
I could only consistently load them to 17 and get them seated. Maybe they just springs need to break in more. Getting that 18th round in was a real pain. Didn't make a big difference here because we had so many areas to reload anyway, like having a little bit lower capacity. Yeah, getting the mags loaded was really the only.
Those are mech car mags,
correct?
Yeah. Yep. So they might get a little easier over time, or you could use a loading tool.
Yeah, or better loading tool. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's fair. So all in all, I would say that if you wanted really a top-end Beretta that is a derivative of the P38 up into the most modern era of 2023, this thing's good to go.
Yeah, pretty amazing gun.
Yeah. So now that said, they did send this to us, yes?
Yes, they did send us to us a T&E. I believe if we want to keep it, we have to pay for it. So.
Okay. All right. You're going to want to keep it, I think.
Yeah, I think I am going to want to keep this
Which
one.
is a big deal from you being a Glock guy for so long.
Well, I want to see what I can do with it. It's a very nice gun, and I know from experience that familiarity and skill with a particular piece of equipment matters more than anything, and I'll see if I can push my skill past what I can do with a polymer striker-fired gun with this one.
My thought on that is that as much as you can make a Glock as good as you've made it, but this is already nicer right off the bat.
Right.
So if you practice with this longer, you're going to be even better with this than you would be with the best, most enhanced Glock. Is that
Probably
a reasonable statement?
I think that's likely.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Well, that's just full disclosure. We'll have to decide if we decide to keep it or not. This thing is amazing. I hardly recommend it. So, guys, if you like this kind of stuff and these kind of thorough reviews, please consider supporting us on Patreon or Utron. It's the reason you keep the channel alive. It's the ammunition we're able to use to fire this gun and do this kind of review for you, and maybe, perhaps, buy it for the channel or for you to use more for more thorough reviews. If you can't, I understand. To subscribe to the channel, and please defeat the algorithm by sharing with your friends. Thanks for watching.